Long before the first European ships appeared on the horizon, a vast and beautiful land was already home to millions. For over 15,000 years, Native Americans had lived across this great continent. They were not one people, but hundreds of nations, each with its own language and culture. From the frozen north to the deserts of the south, they thrived in harmony with the land. The Great Plains tribes followed the mighty herds of buffalo. The buffalo gave them food, clothing, and shelter. Nothing was ever wasted. In the eastern woodlands, tribes built villages and farmed the fertile earth. They grew corn, beans, and squash, the three sacred sisters of the soil. In the southwest, the Pueblo peoples built homes of stone and clay into the cliffs. Every tribe had its own beliefs, but most shared a deep respect for nature. They believed the land did not belong to them. They belonged to the land. Their lives were guided by the seasons, the animals, and the spirits of their ancestors. Great councils gathered to make decisions in wisdom and unity. For thousands of years, this way of life flourished across the continent. But across the ocean, a new world was about to arrive on their shores. In 1492, Christopher Columbus landed in the Americas, believing he had reached India. He called the people he met Indians, a name born from his mistake. At first, many meetings were peaceful, filled with curiosity and trade. The natives shared their food, their knowledge, and their land. But the newcomers brought something far deadlier than any weapon. They carried diseases the native peoples had never faced before. Smallpox, measles, and influenza swept through the tribes. With no immunity, entire communities were wiped out. Historians believe up to 90% of the native population perished. It was one of the greatest demographic catastrophes in human history. Whole cultures and languages vanished before they could ever be recorded. Yet the survivors endured, holding on to their traditions and their land. As more settlers arrived, they began to hunger for the vast native lands. The peaceful coexistence would not last for long. A long and painful struggle for the land was about to begin. As the new nation of America grew, it looked hungrily toward the west. Settlers pushed deeper into native lands, farm by farm, town by town. Again and again, treaties were signed between the tribes and the government. And again, those treaties were broken. Sacred lands were taken, and the tribes were pushed ever further away. The buffalo, once numbering in the tens of millions, were slaughtered. Hunters killed them by the millions, destroying the tribe's way of life. Without the buffalo, the Great Plains tribes faced starvation. The government offered them small reservations, far from their ancestral homes. These lands were often barren, unable to support their people. Some tribes signed away their freedom, hoping to survive. But others refused to give up their homeland without a fight. Great leaders rose to defend their people and their way of life. They would become legends, remembered for their courage and wisdom. Among them were names history would never forget. In the north, a Lakota leader named Sitting Bull stood as a symbol of resistance. He was a warrior, a holy man, and a fierce defender of his people. Alongside him rode the brave and brilliant war leader, Crazy Horse. When gold was found in the sacred Black Hills, settlers flooded in illegally. The Lakota were ordered to leave their holy land. They refused. In 1876, the army marched to force them onto the reservations. But the tribes gathered in huge numbers along the Little Bighorn River. A confident officer named Custer attacked, badly underestimating them. The warriors rose up and surrounded his forces. In a stunning victory, Custer and his men were completely defeated. The Battle of Little Bighorn became the tribe's greatest triumph. But it would also seal their tragic fate. Enraged, the government sent its full might against the tribes. One by one, the free tribes were hunted down and forced to surrender. Crazy Horse surrendered to save his starving people, and later died in custody. Decades earlier, in the southeast, another tragedy had already unfolded. The Cherokee had built farms, schools, and even their own written language. They had adapted, hoping to live in peace beside the settlers. But when gold was found on their land, the government wanted them gone. In 1830, a law was passed to remove them from their ancestral home. The Cherokee were forced to march over 1,000 miles to the west. This brutal journey became known as the Trail of Tears. Thousands died from cold, hunger, and disease along the way. Nearly a quarter of the Cherokee people perished on that terrible path. It remains one of the darkest chapters in American history. Far to the southwest, one man refused to surrender for years. His name was Geronimo, the fearless Apache leader. With only a small band, he evaded thousands of soldiers for years. He became a legend, the last great warrior to hold out. But in 1886, even Geronimo finally surrendered. The wars were ending. By now, most tribes were confined to reservations, their old life gone. In their despair, a new hope spread among the people, the ghost dance. They believed the sacred dance would restore their world and their ancestors. But the government feared this movement and tried to stop it. They ordered the arrest of the great chief Sitting Bull. In the struggle that followed, Sitting Bull was killed. Fearful and grieving, a band of Lakota fled across the frozen plains. In December 1890, they were stopped at a creek called Wounded Knee. As the soldiers tried to disarm them, a shot rang out. What followed was a massacre. Hundreds of men, women, and children died. Wounded Knee marked the tragic end of the Indian Wars. The long resistance of the free tribes had finally come to an end. A way of life that had lasted thousands of years was gone. The survivors faced a hard new life on the reservations. Their children would be taken and forced to abandon their culture. For decades, the government tried to erase Native American culture entirely. Children were sent to boarding schools, forbidden to speak their own language. Their traditional names, clothes, and customs were taken from them. The goal was to make them abandon who they truly were. But the spirit of these nations could not be broken. In secret, elders passed down their stories, songs, and sacred traditions. Slowly, the tribes began to fight back, this time with words and laws. In the 20th century, Native Americans finally gained citizenship. They served bravely in the World Wars, including the famous Code Talkers. The Navajo Code Talkers created an unbreakable code that helped win the war. A new generation rose, determined to reclaim their heritage. In the 1960s and 70s, they marched for their rights and their dignity. They demanded that broken treaties finally be honored. Their voices, silenced for so long, were finally being heard. Slowly, their languages and traditions began to return. Today, there are over 500 recognized tribal nations in the United States. Millions of people proudly carry their Native American heritage. Ancient languages, once nearly lost, are being taught to new generations. Powwows and ceremonies celebrate traditions that survived against all odds. Native artists, writers, and leaders enrich the world with their voices. Yet many challenges still remain on the reservations today. Poverty and hardship continue to affect many Native communities. But the strength and spirit of these nations endure. They continue to fight to protect their land, water, and sacred sites. Their ancient wisdom about living in harmony with nature inspires the world. The story of Native Americans is one of unimaginable loss, but it is also a story of incredible resilience and survival. They were here for thousands of years before anyone else. And despite everything, they are still here today. Their story deserves to be remembered, honored, and never forgotten. The legacy of Native Americans lives on all around us today. Many of the places we know still carry their original native names. Rivers, mountains, and states across America echo their languages. Their knowledge of medicine, farming, and nature shaped the modern world. Foods like corn, potatoes, and tomatoes came from native agriculture. These gifts spread across the whole world, changing how humanity eats. Their deep respect for the earth is a lesson we still need today. They saw themselves not as owners of nature, but as part of it. In a world facing environmental crisis, their wisdom matters more than ever. The tragic story of Native Americans is a warning from history. It reminds us of the cost of greed, prejudice, and broken promises. But it is also a powerful story of survival against impossible odds. These nations endured centuries of loss, and yet they never disappeared. Their culture, once nearly destroyed, is blossoming once more. New generations are reclaiming their languages, their art, and their pride. The voices that were once silenced now speak louder than ever. They remind the world of who was here first and who remains. Their ancestors watch over lands they cherished for thousands of years, and their descendants carry that legacy proudly into the future. The story of Native Americans is the story of the land itself, a story of beauty, tragedy, courage, and endless resilience. It is a story that belongs to all of humanity. By remembering it, we honor those who came before us. We learn from their pain, and we celebrate their survival. The first peoples of America will never be forgotten. Their spirit lives on in every mountain, river, and open sky. They are the heart and soul of this ancient land. So let us remember their story with respect and with honor. For it is a story that must never fade from our memory. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe for more history that matters.